a core lens that has been distorted for humanity on a mass scale. And it's using a particular discipline that I enjoy and I've enjoyed most of my life. And that is astrology. Yeah, so I'm going to take it back to that because there was an idea that I was introduced to time runs together. Maybe it was last week or the week before that really, it's like, it made me go, I was thinking about it like, wait a minute, that makes sense, but it contradicts everything I thought I knew. So I love those kinds of thought forms because it gives me an opportunity to re-look at what I thought I knew, why I thought I knew it from a completely different perspective. And in that, I woke up to another level of distortion. And in this case, with astrology, it's a lens that distorts our access to the Akashic field. And this is important because we're waking up out of the sleep that we've been in around what our existence is about in the realm of the Pachamama. What it means when people say waking up to 4D, 5D, all this stuff. Now, those words for me never really quite worked, but I do understand why they're used. So sometimes I reference them. Okay. So I'm going to use some of that language today in reference to this astrology piece that it's been in the back of my mind. And then our dear sister Starshine, our resident astrologer in the Academy, Ray Ellen, made mention of her waking up to a whole nother level of something. And it struck her so strongly that she's completely changing everything, how she's ever looked at astrology. Now she does amazing readings. Several of you have had readings with her. She does readings, traditional astrology, like as in Western astrology, and then she does Vedic astrology, and then she does starseed origins. And through the working of the starseed origins, her higher self is re-educating her on how to use a new lens. And that internal teaching has reached critical mass within, and now she's ready to throw everything out that she thought she knew. And she's been practicing this for more than 50 years, okay, and come at it in a completely different way. And I'm so glad that she said this out loud because I have been in a similar vein with this thought form that I'm talking about that I was introduced to. And what I mean by this is our astrology wheel. So, there's a lot of talk about Pluto and Aquarius, right? And I was listening to some guys talk about other times in history when Pluto was going through Aquarius and the kinds of innovations that came. And what I learned in that is that, it wasn't until I think it was the early 1000s AD that houses were being introduced into astrology, which I found interesting. And then they started talking about other innovations. And then I realized that this whole thing that we're talking about and studying is humanity's exploration and decoding of an overlay based on a narrative that's not actually in a core truth. It's a narrative that's agreed upon on some of these interdimensional nesting dolls, the beings of these interdimensional nesting dolls, but it's not a core truth, as in it's not something that radiates from the cosmic core of who we are in these biosuits. And humanity has been working at decoding this for many thousands of years. And this is what really got me thinking, like, okay. Because like, I can tell when I'm onto something because something inside gets excited, like, ooh, we're about to have a breakthrough, And the thought form that came up for me was, all right, so I'm spending this time in Guatemala with a dear sister Starshine, and she listens to different channels and shares things with me. One of them was a woman in New Hampshire. No, she's in Vermont. Oh shoot, now I can't remember her name. That's so bad. Oh, Lolita, that's her name. And she uses a completely different system of astrology. And I watched one of the videos with my friend, and she explained the kinds of astrology that she uses. She didn't name it, but I started doing a little research, and it's called Hellenic. It's based on Helena, right? And what this is, it's a form of astrology where the chart is completely flipped around. Now, those of you guys who know what I'm talking about that astrological wheel. If you ever had a birth chart done in Western astrology, there's a wheel, and the rising sign is considered where the horizon was pointing when you were born, and the wheel starts from that sign and goes around, and each house in that wheel is supposed to indicate an area of your life where you're exploring. And so that's one method. That's the tropical method. But there's other methods where the 0 degrees Aries starts wherever the beginning of your chart is. So no matter what time you were born, the chart always begins with 0 degree Aries. So that means your consciousness evolution starts with the energy of Aries. Now, Aries is also the spring equinox energy. This is where life just explodes forward. And on a deep subconscious level, what that particular lens is implanting in us is that as soon as we're born, we are born into the explosive fire energy. And with the Hellenistic chart, it's completely reversed. The chart starts with Cancer. So when you're born, you don't leave the waters of the mother right away. You spend some time in the waters of the mother. And then as you are surrounded and calibrated by the sacred waters of the mother, the nurturing waters of the mother, you go on to the next stage of maturation, which is seeing your reflection, which is Gemini. So, and that keeps going all the way around the chart. Now, these are 3 different kinds of astrology that I just tied into this one idea. And if you sink into the feeling of your body to this thought that we are facing right now in this reality a lot of challenging narratives. People are learning through suffering. People first have to suffer before they're motivated to decode and get themselves out of it. And this is a reality that is, I feel like, old paradigm. And I've always felt like this is an old paradigm reality, but I had to learn a lot about suffering and read a lot about how different spiritual mastery disciplines look at suffering. And what I realized is that the whole evolution is sabotaged by instantly going into that Aries energy. It's like it's being born and now it's spring. It's like, no, you're born as a very fragile being that needs lots of love and nurturing, right, by the mother. So it's like you're still kind of a seed that's getting planted into the ground. And that feels like a much more loving, nurturing way to bring us into this reality. Okay. So believe it or not, this does tie into all those other narratives that I was saying, but it's going to take me a little while to tie it all together. So that got me to thinking, because one of our conversations in Light Body has been, decoding the difference in these astrology disciplines of astrology. So you have Vedic astrology, and this is where everything is 23 degrees earlier than how tropical astrology is. And then Ray Ellen comes forward with this new to her way of looking at astrology, where it uses the actual locations of these regions of star map rather than the calculated ones. And in my mind, for the longest time, I had a misperception. I thought that tropical astrology was the calculated locations, and that Vedic astrology was the actual locations, but that's not true. Those are also calculated. That's news to me. I never knew that before. So when I was introduced to this Hellenistic idea of astrology, I was like, okay. What I'm recognizing is that this lens, this astrology truly is a lens to the upper realm, which is that next realm outside the 4D, which is the fifth dimensional field of creation, of it's creating with pure desire. We can say it like that. And this is the realm that is, and through wisdom teachings has been held, the integrity of it has been held in place by certain Palladian consciousness. And this is why we have the seven sisters that are so prevalent in our ancient mythology. These seven sisters are the Palladian sisters. And there's a lot of sacred sacred sisterhoods that come from those teachings. But then there are, other stories that are layered on top of that, because in our mythology, the seven sisters have always had a conflict with the patriarchy. Like there was always a chasing of them, an intent to defile them. And they were always, trying to find, or faced with having to find their place, and keeping their innocence, keeping their purity, and not being very successful. And I feel like what this is all telling us, it's giving us this, upon entry into this reality, a distorted lens to access our purpose, to access the truth of why we're here. Okay. So there is a distortion that's very, very prevalent within the 4D field that inserts in our subconscious that we come here to suffer. We come here to learn through suffering, or we come here to learn, like this is a really challenging college of life, and we have to learn what we have to learn in order to earn our merit to graduate to a next level. And what I'm realizing is that that's actually a distortion. And this 4D, and I'm so glad to recognize this, because this is a 4D distortion that corrupts our access to these higher dimensional realities.